Man, what is happening, everybody? Jeff C. back with another book review, and this time I'm talking about Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. And I just gotta say, this is one of the best reading experiences I've ever had as a reader. I'm just going right out the gate, starting right there. I really loved this book. The Pillars of the Earth was originally published in 1989, and I'm in the this particular version has a it has the original introduction, then it also has a 25th anniversary introduction. And in that introduction, Ken Follett talks about how he had initially started writing this story and then kind of shelved it for a decade, which is crazy. And so he kind of built a career as a thriller writer. And so that's really where he got his name. And then in the background, he would go and he really just became enamored with cathedrals and the building of cathedrals. And he would go and spend days at a single cathedral. And in the introduction, he even notes how most people show up to these tourist sites and they might spend a couple of hours at a cathedral, whereas he would literally go and return and spend hours for days at a cathedral, really studying all the idiosyncrasies of the building, talking to the inhabitants, the folks who worked there, about its history and the adornments and the ornamentation of the structure. And so I thought that was really interesting how deep he went into what ultimately would just be one aspect of this novel here. So what we have here, this is a story about ambition, power, survival, and it's really told through the lives of people who were, ultimately they were wanting to build something that would outlast them. And so that, again, that is a cathedral, and we follow these characters through decades of their life. So it's really, this is such a character-driven story, and it's, I don't know, man, this might be one of the first novels that I've read in this recent string of continuously reading where it's probably the most character-driven story that I've ever read. And very early on in this book, you meet a cast of characters. There's a family. There's a guy named Tom, his wife Agnes. They have two children at that time, Alfred and Martha. And you just immediately connect with them. Their struggle, they are barely surviving. And so the heartbreak of what they have to go through as a family and individually, it doesn't take very long. Honestly, I got kind of emotional pretty quick. I think within 200 pages, something happens in this book where you're just like, oh my God. And so I just knew from very, very early on that this was going to be an insane book. I will say also real quickly that I've never heard anybody say anything bad about this book. Like, I don't know anybody who has read this book. You can see it's a part of Oprah's book club who's been like, like everybody's like, yes, this is insanely great book. Even Oprah called Ken Follett on the phone, is like, oh my God, I love this story. I have to make this a part of my book club. And, their relationship went on from there. And so, yeah, it's, I just can't really get over this. This story is told in the 12th century, so the 1100s. And I believe that it spans about 50 years, I want to say, because I think it was like the 1120s when it first starts, and then I know at the end we're in the 1170s. And so, like I said, you're getting multiple character arcs across several generations, not only like just who the person is, but like literally like their title and what they do for a living, I mean, you see all different sorts. I mean, massive growth shown on some of them and others not so much. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly, the amount of things that I could say just about the experience of reading this, this version is 970 pages and it just flew by. I think it took me probably about maybe like 15 days of total reading time, just where I might read. Some days I didn't read very much. There were a few days around my birthday where I didn't read at all for like 4 days. But I was thinking about it the whole time. So, yeah. One of the things that I kind of have in my little notes here, and one of the things I wrote for some of these characters, like you have Tom, who is the main character, the main protagonist. But again, like, just the way these characters build and stuff that happens, like, by the end of the story, you're really like, maybe there's other characters who are actually the main protagonist. But I have a couple of little notes where, like, somebody like Tom, and there's another character named Jack, you can really see that they represent, like, craftsmanship because of who they are. And not only that, but, like, legacy because of how the continuity through both Tom and Jack. There is just a sense of legacy that happens there. The next character is Philip of Kingsbridge. He is the prior of this whole Kingsbridge town and of the monastery there, and he is the one who is overseeing the building of this cathedral. And I really think that simultaneously, Philip of Kingsbridge embodies both faith and leadership. He, one is steadfast in his faith to God, and he is also very good at getting people to believe in him and his ability to be a leader, and he is really good at both of those qualities, faith and leadership. We have another female character who, I'm not really big on any kind of like content warnings, but I will say there is an SA content warning with this character. Her name is Aliena. She goes through some horrific scenarios, but she is very resilient. And she is just the embodiment of resiliency and survival. And she is able, not just that specific episode, but through that and just other stuff that she has to endure as a female in this world. And she's such a strong presence, and I think she's really somebody for a lot of people to look up to. The last character that I really just wanted to kind of point out from the Pillars of the Earth is William Hambley. I don't know if I wanted to see a character die any more in a novel than I did William, probably just because his presence is pretty much permeates the entirety of this novel. Maybe, what is his name? Mike? Is that the character in The Stand? The bully? I forget off the top of my head. But he really represents destruction and cruelty. This William guy does. And it's just, again, it's multiple instances, just several different individuals and just communities that he just ravages, and he is responsible for the ravaging of. And so you really just like, it's so tense just having to deal with this guy. And so, but I feel also that Ken Follett did a very good job at sprinkling in all of the characters just long enough to where you're seeing something and it's tense, and then there might be something else that you're seeing somewhere else that kind of lightens the mood. And so there's a good ebb and flow of emotions throughout this novel. Another good thing that the Pillars of the Earth does is it shows the kind of power struggle that happens, especially earlier you know, in earlier times between the church and the state. And so again, you have the Kingsbridge, the church, you have the whole, you know, there's the Archbishop of Canterbury, even the Pope is involved in this story, all the way up to the king, and there is a lot of power. You see guys who are at the absolute top of their pile be humbled into doing just basically groveling at various scenarios and times in this work. I think this is this is a historical fiction. This is, as far as I can remember just off the top of my head, this is like my first major historical fiction. I really liked it. It kind of reads like a fantasy novel, and you know, you have that setting, you know, the knights and the king and the castles, but it is on Earth. It would be a low fantasy, and there's no like magical type of like magic system or anything, though there is some witchcraft that happens and some cursing that happens. And so yeah, it's really like historical. It's realism with some very strong emotional storytelling. Kind of like I said earlier with in regards to like William, the tension is it builds up. There is justice, but it is slow. And you know, there is a payoff in this novel, but it takes patience. But again, the way Ken Follett writes is this is very easy to read. I won't say that there's not words that I had to like highlight and look up and be like, what is that? Especially in like regards to like the actual cathedral part. Like I like, if you know the Star Spangled Banner of the United States, you know that there's the word rampart in there, but I didn't know what a rampart is. I never took the time to look. So then I had to look, like, what is an actual rampart? You know, and just other parts of a cathedral, you know, that type of vocabulary. It's present, but it's not overpowering. Again, the characters are the biggest part of this story. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I love an author's ability to turn a phrase. I love like a nice paragraph that just really hits hard, but I didn't really do that much annotating. You know, I read most of this on my Kindle, and there are some phrases in there that are like really good, but I just poured through this thing, man, when I was reading it. There, you know, every once in a while there would be a line, and it would, honestly, all the lines that I felt compelled to highlight, like a lot of, you know how on the Kindle it shows you if a lot of people have highlighted the same little phrase or whatever. And so it would usually be one that a lot of people highlighted. And so, but man, for the vast majority of the Pillars of the Earth, I was just flying, just going through. I mean, there were a couple of days where I easily read over 100 pages. Honestly, I think I read over 200 pages the day that I finished this, which was yesterday. But again, I highly recommend The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Please do not be intimidated by the size of this book. It will fly by, and it just, you know, if you love reading, it just means, I mean, I don't know, man, I did not want this book to end. You know, it's just, now, honestly, if I had to have any critique, I would love to see a little bit more of how are things later, you know. And I know that this is it says a prequel to A World Without End, which is the next book in the Kingsbridge series. There are 5 books in that series. First is The Pillars of the Earth, and then there's World Without End, and then there's The Column of Fire. I don't remember off the top of my head the other 2 books, but I know the 4th book is a prequel to The Pillars of the Earth. But I think there's like hundreds of years between each book. So if I remember correctly, there's like 200 or 250 years from The Pillars of the Earth to World Without End. And so that'll be interesting to read. I'm not going to jump into The World Without End right away. I have other stuff that I'm going to read next. But 5-star book for me. The Pillars of the Earth, Ken Follett. There's not a single person I wouldn't recommend this book to. I think even for the little essay content, I think it's worth going through that. It's not like overly descriptive, and yeah, I really just loved this book. I can easily see myself rereading this at some point. And so yeah, Ken Follett, The Pillars of the Earth. Let me know down in the comments if you have read this. I posted it on Instagram and Facebook, and I had several people say that this was their favorite book they've ever read. I've had people say that they, again, like kind of agreeing with the I didn't want it to end. You know, I get 100, 150 pages towards the end, and I'm starting to get sad that I know it's going to be over soon. And yeah, man, check it out. If you're not already following me on social media, I'm on Instagram, Jeff C. Based in Books. Follow me on Goodreads. I'm also on Fable. Yeah. Anyway, let me know down in the comments. Please like and subscribe. And I will be back very soon. I recently turned 50 years old, and I got 100 books for my 50th birthday. So I'm going to go into that here soon. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you soon. And enjoy some more books in the future. I hope you're reading something good. And until next time, peace.